Understanding the different visa options is crucial when planning to join family members in the UK. The spouse visa and dependent visa are two primary routes for families seeking to live together in the UK. Each visa type has its specific requirements, rights, and application processes. However, many people get confused between these visa categories and sometimes apply for the wrong one, leading to visa rejection. If you find yourself in this situation, make sure to watch today's podcast. Amil and I will explore the details of both the spouse visa and the dependent visa to clear up any confusion. We will cover everything from start to finish, including the actual meaning of these visa categories, who can apply, what documents are needed, costs, timelines, and most important, financial requirements. So, if this topic is relevant to you, stay tuned until the end. But before we do a deep dive, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Sarika and I have been living in the UK for the past 15 years. I'm currently working as a lead business analyst at one of the largest tour operators in Europe. Without any further delay, let's invite Amil and get started with today's topic. Hi Amil, welcome to Your Knowledge Buddy. And if you don't mind, can you please introduce yourself once again to our audience, please?
Hi Sarika, I hope you all are doing well. So my name is Mohammed Amil. My company name is Mak25 London. We are an immigration law firm based in London, Canary Wharf. And I'm an ex-international student as well, as always, just for you guys.
Yes, and that's why Amil is here to help you guys. So today's topic is spouse visa and dependent visa. So this is one of the topic where I have seen when people reach out to me asking queries, they always say, hey, it's a spouse visa, but they're actually talking about dependent visa. And there are times when people say about dependent visa, but I realize it's spouse visa. So today we will try to clarify what is the difference between two. So let's start with what is spouse visa and what is the eligibility criteria to apply for a spouse visa.
So Sarika, as the name suggests, spouse visa is something which allows any individual to get settled in the UK who's either married or in a civil partnership with a British or settled person, which leads to settlement scheme in the next 5 years. They are eligible for indefinite leave to remain, and without any further ado, they do not need to wait for 1 year of spending ILR time, and they can apply for the British passport.
Right. So anyone who is here on a ILR, it means their partner, if they are not with them now, if say they are in India or any part of the world, they can bring them on spouse visa.
Exactly.
And not dependent visa.
Exactly. So let me clarify. There are a few things which we need to understand when it comes to spouse visa specifically for UK. So the British person could be either have a British citizenship, have settlement in the name of indefinite leave to remain. They could be from EU settled status.
Right.
They could also have pre-settled status in the UK. So they're allowed to marry anyone in the world, have a genuine relationship. Please have a genuine relationship and come to the UK and get settled on that specific route. But making sure that there are few requirements such as making sure you have got proper accommodation requirements, English language requirements, which we'll talk in length, and financial requirement, the most important part of spousal visa, I would say.
So it's clear to me now what is spouse visa and eligibility criteria. Let's quickly talk about dependent visa. What is dependent visa? Which visa category people are allowed to use dependent visa?
So Sarika, dependent visa comes in many forms. Like you can be a dependent of a skilled worker, you can be a dependent of a student who's on a research course here in the UK, you can be a dependent of a startup visa. Basically, it's known as point-based system, P-based dependent visa. So this dependent visa do not independently lead to citizenship in the UK.
Right.
That completely depends on the main applicant, either who's on a skilled worker visa or a startup visa or maybe an innovator founder visa. So dependent visa is completely different from a spouse visa because dependent main applicant is not British or settled individuals in the UK.
Okay. I think, Amil, in other countries, I may be wrong, say Canada or US, they generally use the word spouse visa. That's why when people compare that terminology with other countries, when they come to the UK, they get confused. So generally when they talk about spouse visa when they actually mean is dependent visa. Yeah, so that can be the
exactly the terminologies in with the UK Home Office, it's quite different. Like for the spouse, it's completely known. Okay, if you're a spouse, you're married to or maybe in a civil partnership with a settled person, or if you're a dependent, okay, your partner is on a PBS visa like skilled worker or maybe student or maybe innovator founder, something like that. So they have categorized it really well in that regards.
Okay, cool. So we'll talk about now financial requirements because there were some recent changes or the last year. So we heard about the financial threshold which was increased last year for spouse visa 38,700. But now the Labour government has commissioned to review the expected, which is happening in June 2025.
Exactly.
So can you explain or do you know what's happening or when will be the new updates published? Maybe June?
So when the Conservatives were in power, they changed the complete, thing when it comes to the financial requirement for spouse visa. I have seen many families were not able to bring their own spouses because they were just earning about 22 or 23,000 pounds based in different parts of the UK. So what the Conservative government did, we're not here to say anything right or wrong, but they wanted to reduce the net migration.
Correct.
So they have made this phases that from April 2024, the requirements would be 29,000 pounds from 18,600. Then in late 2024, the requirements would be 34,500. And then early 2025, the requirements would be 38,700.
Correct.
But when in July, the Labour government came in power, they put everything on hold. They wanted the committee to review that what is actually happening. Either we are not doing anything wrong with British people who want to get married to somebody in the UK. Are they actually earning that amount of salary? Are they able to get their own spouses back into this country? So they wanted to look at on the humanitarian grounds that how this thing is impacting specifically to British citizen or maybe settled people. So I think it's still in the review, and they have said that in June 2025 we'll finally get an update that what is happening with the new financial requirement.
Oh, so it can either go this way or that way. They change or
hopefully,
not change
hopefully I hope for all my audience things goes well in the favor.
Okay, and this change is only for spouse visa, not dependent visa, right?
Exactly.
So are you saying that for dependent visa there's no minimum salary threshold which is defined by the government?
I think this is a very good question which you raised, Sarika, because a lot of people who call me or maybe my other colleagues in the same industry, they always think, oh, my salary is just 25,000 or 26,000 pounds. Maybe I'm on a skilled worker visa. I'm not allowed to bring my family, or maybe it's just 30,000 pounds. So I think you need to understand that you're not settled, you're not British. You can get your family from different part of the world if they are eligible to, get into the UK. So yeah, there is a huge difference between them. The requirements, the financial requirements are completely different when it comes to spouse visa and the dependent visa.
Yeah. So there's no change to dependent visa as such financial requirement. It all depends on the main applicant. If your main applicant, whatever is the salary as per the government to meet the skilled visa requirements, you are good enough. Even though you don't earn anything, you don't have to show any financial requirement, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If your sponsor has certified your maintenance in your certificate of sponsorship, then you do not need to show anything whenever you're getting dependent. But yes, if it's not certified, then there is a very small amount which you need to keep for 28 days for the last 31 days in your business bank account, and it should be continued for 28 days.
Okay, is it the main applicant or the dependent?
It's for the dependent. But I have seen it's very seldom, Sarika, that the sponsor do not certify the maintenance.
Okay.
Normally, it's always certified.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very long time ago when I did for Adi as a dependent visa, I think I did. Adi did not show anything in his bank statement because I was the main applicant, and all the documents, the bank statement, other bits, I had to submit along with my salary slip. But if I remember correctly, I may be wrong. I don't think we submitted anything for my husband Adi. But that's a long time ago.
Yeah. Good old time for UK immigration.
I know. Okay. So thank you for talking about all these details, dependent visa, spouse visa, the requirements, financial requirements bit. Now let's talk about some of the main documents people have to submit when they have to apply for spouse visa. Let's start first with spouse visa, then dependent visa.
So I think obviously it depends case by case, and it's quite situational when we are talking about the documentations for spousal visa. But let's say if you're applying from outside of the UK, there are certain documents which you need to submit as the TB test certificate.
Right.
If it's eligible. And when we are talking for a specific documentation, whether you apply from within the UK or outside of the UK, the most important thing is the financial requirement. How are you satisfying that? Are you satisfying it through your savings? Are you satisfying it through your self-employment? If you're applying from outside of the UK, then only the sponsor needs to show the financial requirements, and then the spouse will be allowed to come back to the UK. If you're already in the UK, then obviously you can combine both the incomes together of the main applicant and the spouse, and then you can show it as a financial requirements. And the basic other requirements like English language requirement you need to show, which we are going to talk in length, I'm sure. And then obviously the TB test certificate. If you're coming from outside of the UK, you need to have a proper accommodation as well in order to stay in the UK. It has got a separate requirement. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is having a genuine intention and relationship to be on a spousal visa.
But how do you prove that? Do you have to prove you are in relationship, or do you have to give like a marriage certificate?
Yeah, marriage certificate is something, let's say if you're not applying as a civil partner, because for civil partnership, the requirement is completely different as compared to who are married. So if you're married, then obviously you need to show your marriage certificate. Along with that, we have recently did a lot of cases where we are showing the flight tickets, medical certificates, pictures of your holidays, bank statements, which shows that obviously you have got a financial transaction and you are showing that you have got a proper, unity between each other. And I think along with that, the most important thing is that how are you keeping track of living with each other? Maybe if somebody is married but they're not living together in the UK because of their work or anything else, then you need to show that how your relationship is still subsisting. Are you going and visiting your family? You're going to visit your spouse wherever they live. Let's say if they live in India, they're going to India to meet them in some phases or stages. So these all small documents make a lot of impact, I would say. Marriage certificate is not enough, I would say.
Oh, it's not enough.
Yeah, it's not enough. Yeah.
Okay. Even at the time of dependent visa, when I applied for Adil, again, long time ago, I had to submit, of course, the marriage certificate, but I had to also submit the pictures, marriage pictures, where their family members attending, we were there. And then also I had to submit some phone call history, like we were in touch, I had to take out like 1 year kind of history and then show that as evidence. And then some pictures of, say, a holiday together or something. And I don't remember about the transactions, but it was already strict that time as well. I think it's getting more now, just to make sure that people are not misusing the spouse visa or dependent visa.
Exactly.
So what we talked about now, you mentioned, was spouse visa. Is there any difference when someone applies with certain documents for dependent visa? Is it a similar kind of documents needed, or is it a little different?
So now in the past 1 year, what I've seen, if you're applying as an entry clearance and you're coming from outside of the UK, what you need to do, you need to show that you have got a substantial relationship. Maybe you have got last 2 years of same address proof, living together. And if you don't have that, because when we apply in different countries like maybe China and Nigeria, mostly all the documents are on the husband's name rather than having on wife's name. So obviously we submit many different documentation which shows that they're living together, like the national ID card, the holiday pictures, the flight bookings, the boarding passes, medical certificate, tenancy agreement together. So all those sorts of things. But when we are just talking about the dependent visa, these documents would count in that to show the relationship. But the requirement is much more less and much more lenient as compared to normal spouse visa, because you don't need to submit any English language requirement.
Yes.
You don't have a big financial requirement.
Yes,
if it's certified. And obviously you need a TB test certificate if you're coming from outside of the UK. So those are the different changes. It is very lenient as compared to the traditional spouse visa.
Okay, so 2 points which is a big highlight for me. For dependent visa, no English language test and no financial requirement, huge financial requirement as compared to spouse visa. And TB test for both people. If you're coming for the first time to the UK, you have to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Amil, we talked about the English language, but for spouse visa, what English language and what level it needs to be?
Interesting question, because it has got different stages to it. Let's say if you're applying for an entry clearance or you're applying for spouse visa for the first time, you need to make sure that at least you have A1 level of English. So that's thing number one. When you're applying for further leave to remain, your extension for the spouse visa, that time you need at least A2. But when you're applying for a settlement for indefinite leave to remain, you need B1 level.
Wow, I never knew this. This is the first time.
That's true. But I think mostly people are now quite educated, quite studied from quite reputed university as well. So they can certify this requirement by having a UK NIC certificate, which was formerly known as UK NARIC. So they can get that certification, or maybe they can give an IELTS exam and just directly get a B1, which is quite easier to get today.
So they don't have to give at all the stages different kind of
exactly.
And this certificate doesn't get expired at all. If you want to use later on for your ILR, for your British passport, you can always use it. You don't have to give again and again. Like your IELTS score, it expires every two years. So that is cost effective, to be honest.
It is. Of course.
Okay. All right, Amil, let's now talk about what is the general processing time of this visa. If we have to talk about, say, spouse visa, someone who's applying for a spouse visa within the UK, what are the current timelines now?
Actually, it varies. Let's say if you apply within the UK, when you satisfy all the requirements in standard service, it takes about roughly 8 weeks. And there is no priority service for spouse visa, but you have a super priority service.
Oh, wow. Is there any reason for it?
I don't know. Maybe they just want to reunite the family all together. So if you apply for a super priority, then you get your decision within 1 day if everything is straightforward and up to the mark. But But I have seen in many cases when the candidate do not meet the requirement like English or maybe the financial requirement, they're not refused, but they have been put down to 10-year route. And that is a whole different video, sometime we'll talk about.
Oh.
Yeah. But then that type of decision takes about 8 to 9 months as well.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So can they not just say, hey, please submit the correct English language requirement rather than putting them for 10-year route?
Actually, as I said, it all case by cases, it all differentiate when it comes to a situation of specific individual. Mostly it happens with the financial requirement where the main applicant does not meet the financial requirement. They have been put to 10-year route rather than getting it refused or rejected. So yeah, that is an interesting type of cases as well.
All right. I never ever heard that. So guys, if you need expert help, you know where to go, right? Okay, Amil, so that was about spouse visa. What are the timelines now for dependent visa?
So dependent visa depends what kind of either it's a point-based dependent visa or maybe you're applying for, let's say, a student visa or something like that. So in a nutshell, if you're applying for in-country, it takes somewhere about 8 weeks and you have an option of super priority and normal priority as well.
Okay.
You get it within 5 working days by paying 500 extra or maybe £1,000 for super priority.
Okay, good. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay, now we have learned everything about spouse visa, dependent visa, eligibility criteria, processing time, and I think it's good to learn now what are the common visa rejections you have seen so far. You have many clients now, you process both dependent visa and also spouse visa. So what are the common visa rejections you have seen so far for spouse visa?
I think the most common I have seen recently, so I'll tell you the most common and the most stupid one, I would say. So the most common is that the people do not have right set of documentation when it comes to financial requirements. I'll give you a small case study. I won't take the name. So one of the client who applied for a spouse visa, the visa got rejected and then they came to us to reapply for a new spousal visa. So what happened? The salary pay slips were not matching the bank transfer in the bank account. So it was very difficult for us to analyze that what is actually happening. And at the end of the day, we understood the situation, what was happening. We corrected it. We applied for the visa and now they are happy being on a spouse visa. And I think the most stupid thing people do is that they get confused between the dependent and the spouse visa.
That's true. And that's why we're making this video.
Yeah,
it's an awareness video.
It is an awareness video. And guys, you need to understand that there's a huge difference between whenever we are talking about a spouse visa, which is only for individuals who are getting married to a settled person in the UK, and dependent visa where you're getting married or you're already married, you're coming on a point-based system, on skilled worker visa, on student research, innovator founder, startup visa, things like that. So those are the things what we need to understand, that there's a huge difference between both the visas.
So that was one common reason for the rejection you have seen. What is the second one? For example, I know many people get confused because of dependent visa and spouse visa. So I know personally they apply in a different visa category. Spouse visa applying dependent visa applying spouse visa. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, it has happened a lot of time. It's quite funny that people uses the wrong form, not even during applying it for the first time, but for the extension. So they think now maybe our skilled worker partner is on ILR, so now we'll apply for the spouse visa. And instead of applying for an extension of a dependent visa, they apply for a spouse visa where the clock reset again to 0.
Oh dear.
It has happened a lot of time.
Oh dear.
Yes, it has happened a lot of times. So guys, be aware. You need to understand that whenever you're extending your visa, you're using the right and correct type of form.
But do you not think that Home Office should kind of alert them when they receive the application saying, hey, you applied under the wrong category, and resend them a form rather than resetting their clock? That's too harsh.
See, it depends on the caseworker as well. Sometimes the application is termed as invalid as well. So rather than getting refused, it gets rejected as well. But what happened under this circumstances, the people apply very close to the visa expiry. So when anything happens like that, they're considered as an overstay when the visa is refused or rejected because they don't have any leave. There might be an option that Home Office gives them another 14 days to apply for a new category. So it all depends case by case and what documents you have submitted, all those sorts of things. But I think another reason I would like to cover in this video, that you have not disclosed your previous immigration history, which people actually fail to do it. Sometimes they think, oh, it's a very small thing, or maybe my Canada visa got refused, or maybe I was deported from USA, you have to disclose it. Because people think that if you are going to put it down in the form, because we have dealt with hundreds and hundreds of cases, and one of my client was deported from the UK. After 10 years, we got him back. So if you disclose as whatever happened in the past, it makes your case easier rather than you making our life as well difficult. And I think the last thing I would like to cover is submitting expired documentation, maybe expired IELTS examination certificate and things like that. Your previous pay slips, which doesn't make any sense, maybe from last year, from your previous employers. So a lot of things people jumble up. People just go on Google or maybe go on the overview and think, oh, we know it all, now we are going to apply. So it doesn't work like that.
So in terms of the pay slip, it needs to be recent, like last 3 months?
Last
6
months. 6 months, yeah.
Okay.
Last 6 months, yeah.
And of course, IELTS, if it's expired, it's written clearly, this is valid only for 2 years. So it's a common sense that you should not be using it.
Exactly.
Can I just ask you a question? Say a student who's studying here and did not manage to get a degree, say because of low attendance, yeah, do they also need to add that in the reasons that they did not get a degree, they got a letter from home office that they need to leave the country, or their visa was curtailed? Do they need to also specify that in the future?
So it depends. If they are coming from outside of the UK, then yes, they need to. And obviously if they are applying from inside of the UK, so it would be understandable whenever, because if you are a student and if you have not completed your studies, obviously you're not eligible to apply for a skilled worker visa. But if you're applying for a spouse visa, obviously you can apply on a discretionary ground and explain the home office what actually happened, and you have not got a degree yet, so you need to get either UK NIC or you need to give the IELTS exam.
Correct.
Yeah.
What if, say, someone who was on a skilled visa was made redundant and now they have left UK?
Yeah.
Now, say they got married and now they want to apply for a dependent visa. Okay. So when they apply for a dependent visa, do they need to also specify that they were in the UK but they were made redundant and they had to go back?
No, you don't have to be very explicit, because when you fill a form from outside of the UK, they would be asking that have you visited UK in the past 10 years. So in that it would be very understandable that yes, they were in the UK. They do not need to give any specific reason, or there's nothing in the form, because they were made redundant and they came back to their home country before the visa expiry or before the home office curtailment letter. So it saves them. That's not a problem.
Yeah. What if someone overstays here in the UK and then of course they go back later on, and in the future when they plan to come here, do they have to also say that they overstayed? In some part of the form, is it being asked that did you overstay in the UK?
Exactly 100%. I'll just suggest to each one of you, if you have dealt with any situation like that, you need to, because even if you do not, the home office will get to know, and then it would be a case of deception, and then you're going to be banned for the next 10 years. So those things are really, really important. It depends on what basis you overstayed. Let's say if you overstayed for like few days, then you're banned for 1 year. If you overstayed for certain reasons and the home office paid on your behalf, then you might be banned for the next 2 to 5 years. And maybe if you're banned because of deception, then it's going to be 10 years. So the overstayer things have also got different reasons and different suggestions when it comes to applying for a new visa.
Those are still part of the rejections reasons if it is not clearly stated in this form, right?
Yes.
Irrespective of whether it's dependent visa or a spouse visa.
Yeah.
Good. I'm feeling good. After discussing this topic in detail, we covered the scenarios of rejection reasons, top 4 or 5. We covered everything about documents, difference between spouse visa and dependent visa. Anything else you want to cover, Amil, or think this is a good enough discussion we had on this topic?
I think after dealing with so many spousal and dependent cases, I would just say that it is very important, apart from the basic requirements of financial, English and accommodation, in both the dependent and the spouse visa, make sure you accumulate as many documents as you can to prove that you have got a subsisting and a genuine relationship with your partner. That would take you to places and that would make your case much easier, even if you are applying on your own. So that is a really very important point. Just do not think that the utility list should be on my husband's name, the tenancy should be on my name. That creates a lot of chaos and confusion.
Try to have both of your name if possible.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, thank you very much, Amil. Thank you for coming and sharing your knowledge on this topic with my audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarika.
Okay.